Hey guys, welcome to another Lifestyle of Eden podcast. Today we're going to talk about, I think it's a pretty cool subject. We're going to be talking about blood work, but real more specific on A1C, blood glucose, and insulin today. And the reason being is because this is, right now in my practice, this is probably the biggest issue that I see. It's also issues that I myself have come across in my own life in my past. So today I've got three different blood works we're going to be looking at. One of them is a past one of mine, and one of them is from two other clients, of which will past clients, which will remain anonymous. Um, but one of the things when it comes to blood work, I always tell people, hey, when people come under me as my clients and stuff, they've always got to generally get blood work through my clinic. My clinic is in Cincinnati, and it's nationwide. Now, if you're in other countries, that's a different story. Um, then I send you basically a list of things that you need to get. The problem is that if I send you a list of things that you need to have on your blood work, those blood works can charge $7, $8, $900, for one of those panels. Our panels are $200 for everything. Everything. Like I said, at a regular blood work from your doctors and clinics, they're not going to put TPOAB, thyroid peroxidase. They're not going to put reverse T3. They won't put free T3. They won't put thyroglobulin. They won't put cortisol. Most of them won't even put regular testosterone and free testosterone. They probably won't put DHEA. They'll have A1C and they'll have blood glucose, but they probably won't have insulin. Very few do. Some of these clinics will have like the insulin or the free testosterone, but everything else I just mentioned, I mean, you can basically kiss that goodbye. And so we get all of these things. We also get GGT, which that does not come on most places, which is a liver toxicity level and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that we do with our clinic that you won't get somewhere else. And they're things that I have to see from every angle in order to judge things properly. And so whenever I tell people, hey, I need your insulin on there, they go, oh, yeah, my doctor said it's on there. And I'll get it. And sure enough, it's not on there. Many doctors and clinics don't even know about it. I'll tell you a story. And I won't say the name of this place because I'm not here to bash them. They're good people, good clinic, well intended, but just lack of knowledge. There was a clinic I was working at, or not working at, working with in Iowa, and I remember I had asked the nurse practitioner. I said, "Hey, make sure on my blood work you have insulin." She goes, "Yeah, we have the A1C and glucose." And I go, "No, no, 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 I want insulin." And she goes, "What do you mean?" And I tell her about it. Well, anyway, long story short, I travel to Texas. I get my blood work done at a clinic that I have in Houston that has insulin on there. I get the blood work. I bring it up to Iowa and I place it on the nurse practitioner's desk. And I said, "You see that insulin marker right there? I kid you not. This woman looked me in the eye and said, 'Nick, I have never seen this on blood work before.'" That's astounding. We have nurse practitioners and doctors that don't even know about an insulin marker on your blood work. This is basic stuff. But like I said, most places don't do it. And so these nurse practitioners, they only know what they know. They only know what was taught to them. The blood work that they've been reading, that's the only blood work they know. And they only know the way somebody trained them. That's the great thing about functional medicine is that we've gone outside the parameters. I teach people that are becoming nurse practitioners. They're my clients and they learn from me on how to read blood work the way I read blood work because we're going to show some things today that if somebody in a clinic saw some of the stuff that I'm going to show you today, they would freak out and think that it's something else that it's not. So you need, when it comes to certain things, you need insulin, you need A1C, and you need blood glucose together, all three of them. So let's start with a couple different cases here. All right, so I had a case come to me, and I'm not going to be reading all the things deeply into the thyroid and the testosterones and all those different things, but specifically when it comes to the glucose, A1C, and insulin. So this individual came to me with a fasted glucose of 82. Let me go ahead and tell you right now, that is a absolutely phenomenal level for blood glucose. 82. Number one, 75 to 78 is literally like the epitome of all glucoses. I've never seen one. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I've never actually seen somebody with a 78 glucose, fasted glucose. I've never seen fasted blood glucose.
But that is literally the epitome of perfection. Like I said, I've never seen it. But what we generally say is if you're between 80 and 90, you're a rock star. And the lower in the 80s you are, the better you are. 82 is absolutely phenomenal. Unbelievable. Phenomenal. But then we get over to this individual's A1C. A1C is your fast or is your blood sugar, right? It's your blood glucose averaged over a 90-day period. This individual is a 5.8. 5.8 is a pre-diabetic. How in the world does that happen? This person's fasted blood glucose is 82, which is unbelievable, but yet his A1C, his blood glucose averaged over 90 days, which doesn't just take the fasted, it takes your blood glucose, from morning, evening, night, daytime, after you eat, before you eat, everything. It's an average, is 5.8 is A1C. He's a pre-diabetic. What does that tell us? That means that his fasted blood glucose is phenomenal. But during the day, and the only way to have a 5.8 A1C is if during the day his blood glucose is doing two things. Not only is it shooting through the roof and it's getting exponentially high, but it's never coming back down. The only time it's low is in the morning. So what does that tell me immediately? I immediately start to think, I wonder what his insulin is. One of a couple things is going on. This could be a thyroid issue. Could be an inflammation issue, which all of insulin issues have to do with inflammation, but could be an inflammation issue stemming from the gut. Could be a thyroid issue. If he has a low thyroid, that could cause this to start happening because it could mean that his body's not metabolizing the blood sugars, and so it's sitting in his bloodstream. It's going to cause fatty liver. His liver enzymes will be up. His kidney function will be way off, okay? Or one of two things with his insulin. His insulin is either going to be through the roof, 20 or 30, because it's trying to shove out enough insulin in order to get the blood sugar in the cell, but you're super inflamed, and so therefore you're not able to get it in there, or it's not even firing, meaning your insulin is so low, it's at like a 2, and it's just not even doing anything, and so the sugars that you eat, the food that you eat, is just sitting there. So I immediately go to his insulin, right? So we jump to his insulin, and sure enough, it's at a 10. 10 is getting high. 10 is creeping up. Okay. And his thyroid markers were fine. So I knew it wasn't a thyroid issue. So what does this tell me when his insulin's at 10? Well, ideally, I want his insulin between 3 and 7. Whenever it starts to go up to 10 and more, what that tells me is that you're inflamed and you're insulin resistant. You're having to shove out more and more insulin. So why is he insulin resistant? Well, because he's super inflamed. This individual also had major gut health issues. I had to get a GI map. His gut, is horrendous, and therefore he's having chronic inflammation. When you have chronic inflammation, the insulin's going to go up because you become insulin resistant. So this is how you look at all of these things. You have to have the art of studying blood work. It's not just about, this level is here, it's good. This level is here, it's bad. No, you have to be able to balance all these different things. So with this individual, it really wasn't a glucose issue or, why is the A1C so high, this, that, or the other. Like I said, it's because his insulin's having to shoot out so much because he's so inflamed. It's not a thyroid issue. But then we have the opposite issue with another case I had, right? So in this first case, I just said he had a great fasted blood glucose, but his A1C was through the roof. So then I have another client that comes to me, and he's the exact opposite. His blood glucose is 102, through the roof. Fasted blood glucose is through the roof. Remember, I said a perfect one is 75 to 78, but between 80 and 90 is awesome. He's at 102. That's through the roof. Now, there are many people, many professionals that will judge you off of this blood glucose, and they'll say, you're about to be a diabetic. You're either pre-diabetic or you're diabetic. You cannot judge somebody's being a pre-diabetic or diabetic based off of their fasted blood glucose. Why? This person's A1C was perfect, a 5.2. 5.2. And not only that, his insulin was perfect. It's a 7.6. So how do you explain, this person's not a diabetic, how do you explain the fact that in the morning his blood glucose is through the roof? This is what we call dawn phenomenon. Dawn phenomenon, I've experienced this with diabetic clients, specifically type 1 diabetics. Type 1 diabetics deal with this. And there's a way to temper it, to calm it down. And we did tremendously with this individual. But dawn phenomenon is a stress on the body. It's where basically, especially if it's a cortisol issue, which we'll get to in a moment with this client, what happens is at nighttime, the body starts to go through a stress. And as it's going through a stress, what happens when the body stresses? Well, if the cortisol raises up or stress raises up, what happens? Your cortisol starts saying, we have to run from the tiger. That's what your cortisol's for. It's the stress hormone. It gives you in every moment, in those scary situations, how do you run from the tiger? What does your body have to do to run from the tiger? It's got to signal to the pancreas, to the alpha cells, to release glucagon. Glucagon then goes to your liver and says, hey, that glycogen you have, convert it back to glucose and throw it in the bloodstream. We need energy. What is glucose? It's sugar. So because you're stressed out, because there's a stress going on at night, it's causing your liver to dump sugar in the bloodstream. So a lot of times these people won't burn fat, especially at night. It's like they're not even fasting at night when they're sleeping. They've got blood sugar just raising up because glucose is just dumping out of their liver. So then I go to this individual's cortisol. And sure enough, this individual's cortisol was a 23. 23, let me tell you something. Fasted cortisol before 9 a.m., we want between 10 and 15. We really want at 12 or 13. That's perfect. 23, you're close to becoming what we consider a flatlining adrenal failure or adrenal insufficiency. Your cortisol is pumping out so high because you have there's so much stress, which by the way has not been one day. You don't raise your cortisol in a day. Like this wasn't like, oh, yesterday I lost my job. No, like this has been going on for months. Something's been going on and your cortisol is going so high. Eventually your adrenals are going to say, we're done, we're tired. And they're going to just shut down. That takes 6 months to fix. Adrenal deficiency, where you're just high, that takes about 6 weeks to fix. But anyway, at nighttime, this person's cortisol is so high that it's dumping glucose into the bloodstream. And so this person wakes up in the morning and his fasted blood glucose is through the roof. He's constantly energized. This is the reason for this. So you have to be able to balance these things and go, oh, okay, I recognize it's dawn phenomenon. It's a stress issue. Where's the stress coming from? How do I temper that? Sometimes if there's no cortisol issue, like I've had clients where there's no cortisol issue, they just have dawn phenomenon. Their blood glucose is super high. What do you have to do? You have to calm the body down at night. You have to let the body know, hey, we're not starving you. Feed them proteins, fats, and carbs at night. Raise it up a little bit. So their body goes, oh, he's feeding us. We're good. He's feeding us. We're okay. We don't have to freak out. And then the body will calm down. And then in the morning, that blood glucose will come down. I've watched it before with diabetics. This person isn't just having like dawn phenomenon, like that for no reason. They have a major cortisol issue and it's causing them to just dump things into their bloodstream. But then I want to come to my blood work that I had in the past. And in my blood work, my fasted blood glucose was 89, which is awesome, right? I said between 80 and 90. It's phenomenal. No problem. Could it be a little lower? Could be, but it also could be higher. 80s are fine. Doesn't matter where. It's an awesome number. But then at this time, I look at my A1C and it's a 5.6. 5.7 is pre-diabetic. I was almost a pre-diabetic in this blood work. So I remember I'm looking at it and I'm like, what is going on? And this was during the time that I was having major inflammation from gut issues, right? And I knew that I was getting to pre-diabetic stages because I was constantly thirsty and peeing all the time. And I knew it because I know the signs of these things. So I got my blood work done. I'm going through these major gut issues, right? I was super inflamed, which like we said on the first case, the inflammation will cause you to be insulin resistant. Your insulin's got to pump out. The blood sugar's not able to get into your cells and so forth. So anyway, I've got a good fasted blood glucose, but my A1C is super high. What does that say? Well, the A1C is the glucose averaged over 3 months. So what that tells me is in the morning my blood glucose is fine, but after I eat and throughout my day, my blood glucose is not only shooting through the roof, it's not coming back down. After you eat a meal, you should not go over 140 on your blood glucose. And after 2 hours, you should be back to baseline. You should be back in your 80s or 90s. I was checking my blood sugar. I decided to just prick my finger and check my blood sugar, my blood glucose. Sure enough, 2 hours, 2.5 hours later, I was still almost at 120. My blood sugar was not coming down. I was crazy inflamed. So I go, okay, I need to look at my insulin. Is my insulin not firing, or is my insulin really high and I'm just insulin resistant? So I look at my insulin. My insulin was a 3.5. 3.5 on paper is perfect. That's literally the most perfect insulin you could possibly have. It's unbelievably perfect. It's not just good, it is literally superb. So I started asking myself, because there are times where you'll see this, where the insulin will be a 2 or a 3, and somebody will say, oh, that's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect if they're super lean. But if they're puffy and they're gaining weight and they're having blood sugar issues, what it shows is that they're not even firing insulin. So then with this, I decided to go, okay, you know what? It may or may not be an insulin issue. Let me go look at the thyroid. Sure enough, I had hypothyroid. My thyroid was so oppressed by the inflammation. That's what's going to happen. Your inflammation, especially from a gut issue, will attack the thyroid. That's how you get Hashimoto's. And it will attack the thyroid. And T3, if my T3 is low, T3 is what governs metabolism. T4 converts into T3. So T4 in and of itself doesn't really matter. T4 converts into T3. My T3 was very, very low. What that shows is my T3, my metabolism is not governing properly. It's not metabolizing through my blood glucose properly. So then we had to make sure we dealt with the inflammation. We had to get me on a little bit of a thyroid booster during that time just to keep things going as a Band-Aid until we dealt with the root cause. But these are the things when it comes to blood work, why I say it's not just about levels. There is like this art of coaching, right? This coach may write this thing, this coach may write this thing, because they learn the same thing, but they learn different things work. They balance things with this. They have reasons for why they do it. There's an art to reading blood work. And many people don't know how to do that. Like I said, I have people in the medical field that they learn how to read blood work from me because all they learned were levels. They didn't learn all these things of balancing back and forth. Oh, well, if this is happening, we got to look here. Or this is an inflammation, so this points to this. Or how do we balance this? Oh, this is fine, then it must be this. These are the things that you have to look at with your blood work. I read blood work every week for my clients. I just got more in today. I just got more GI maps in today. These are things that when you look at it, you learn how to balance it. You learn the indications and the pointer fingers that they're pointing at. You can really start to attack health from a full spectrum. So I always encourage people, get your blood work done twice a year minimum if you're healthy. If you're not healthy, every quarter, and sometimes even more. Sometimes if you're dealing with cortisol issues, you need it every 6 weeks to make sure that you get the cortisol down. Because it only takes 6 weeks to get the cortisol down if you're doing it right. So that way you're checking things. But nevertheless, get your blood work done. And if you've got any questions with these things, I know a lot of people that are not trusting certain people. And let me tell you an unrighteous thing that I saw with a clinic. I actually removed all of my clients from them a long time ago. But one of my clients that had PCOS. PCOS is very common to have, obviously, high androgens and high testosterone. This individual has high testosterone. Well, she doesn't know how to read blood work. The nurse practitioner of this clinic told her, you have high testosterone, and got her on testosterone just to get more money. I removed every one of my clients from that clinic. They crossed a major line with me. And so now I just had somebody reach out to me yesterday, and he said, hey, Nick, I do not, because he was one of the people that got screwed from one of these clinics. He said, I don't trust doctors anymore. He goes, I only trust you. He goes, if I need to get all this done and become one of your clients, and will you read this for me and get me, fixed up and this, that, or the other? And I said, we'll read everything and we'll check on what's going on. But this guy's known me for 14 years. He knows I'm going to shoot him straight with things. So if you're having trouble with blood work, you're not sure where to go, you're not sure where to start, please feel free to contact us at lifestyleofeden@gmail.com. Stay tuned for the next episode.